Giving zero and getting laid 0 times is what crolling is. Hey, I'm Nick Kroll. Join us at a great and wonderful look back at my career in vulgarity. This is the IMDb Parents Guide. Here we go, Can you guess the title based on IMDb Parents Guide clues? Sex and nudity, severe exclamation point. There's a full close-up of Nick's penis and testicles, including a talking pubic hair. Yeah, I mean, I think this is Big Mouth.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's Big Mouth.
Yeah, that's okay. That's the title of the show.
I'm keeping track of all the penises I see.
A talking pubic hair. I'm assuming in this one, that's a shout out to Jack McBrayer. The other talking pubic hair, of course, shout out to Craig Robinson.
What it do?
We're your curly new pals.
The Parents Guide for this series lists that between 85 to 95 F words are used in each episode? No, that's not accurate. Each episode is around 24 minutes long. So they're saying that there's, let's call it 4 a minute? No, this is where I think the Parents Guide has gone off the rails. Frankly, there should be a show about how IMDb Parents Guide are the ones that needs a Parents Guide. I mean, we said the F word a bunch in spurts, but then we always do an F word pass. Like at the end of like we've written an episode, it's like, let's go through this now and we can remove this, this, and this, because it's a word with such power, and if you do use it discriminately, it holds much more power. That's why there's never more than, I'd say, 40 or 50 F-bombs an episode.
Gosh, I don't care for the cusses, Mr. Dennis Leary.
Do you have a personal favorite curse word?
I don't. I mean, the beauty of making Big Mouth on Netflix has meant that we have been able to say every curse word in every form. I do like the way Maury says curse words. And I like the way that Lola says curse words, I think, quite a bit.
Lola's right here, you Brussels sprout.
You! There's like a deep gratification of hearing Lola be like, you look like a you Brussels sprout.
What? Who said that? Not me. You.
Yeah.
Beautiful. If Kroll was a curse word, what do you think it would mean?
Kroll as a curse word. Stop crolling. Don't kroll with me. I'm trying to put it in context.
Yeah.
Why don't you take off your pants, get in the back of this Hyundai, and let's kroll. Once you're in the back of the Hyundai, let your freak flag fly, as we do in season 8 of Big Mouth, to find out what crolling is.
Yeah. Let it crawl.
I think it's probably crawling into someone's butt. Feels about right.
Hey, I don't want to hear any more cursing from you two. Unless, of course, you're you two cursing.
Can you guess the title of this violence and gore warning on the Parents Guide? A woman wraps her face in plastic wrap while questioning reality. Huh. I'm sort of trying to remember what this is. Oh, right. I mean, it's so funny. A woman wraps her face in plastic wrap while questioning reality. It's so funny. That is, I think, what will be the least memorable thing about this particular movie. But this is in reference to Don't Worry, Darling.
Yes.
Starring Florence Pugh, who's an absolute force of nature. And I got to obviously be in this movie with her and watch her in this movie. Is just an unreal actor and incredibly physically gifted actor as well, both in watching her and thinking about that moment where she wraps her head in saran wrap and plastic wrap, but also just watching her do her own stunts, run, and now you're seeing it in like Thunderbolts and stuff where you're like, what an unbelievably gifted actress is, like emotional abilities, but also a physically gifted actor being able to do so much. It was really fun to work with her a bit, but to just even kind of watch her and watch someone at like so young and so gifted and in control of their instrument already was so fun.
You know, it is a dramatic story. Are you trying to kind of like hold your tongue, not make any jokes, like be as serious as possible?
No, well, I think it depends on the project, you know, like I was in another movie called Loving that was also set in the 60s, was much more of a straight drama. Even in that, Jeff Nichols, who wrote it, there's like a little bit of sort of humor to my character, even though it wasn't like funny.
An exasperation, right?
Yeah, and then in Don't Worry, Darling, I'm there a bit. I was there a bit, like Olivia and I were friends and she cast me and she was like, your character is sort of amongst these friends, like I'm trying to evoke a bit of a Rat Pack vibe, and I wanted you to be a little like kind of Dean Martin, like you're a fun part of the party, you're a bit of an engine for things.
She should think about the baby!
There was a lot of freedom to be talking and ad-libbing throughout while things were happening, and that they would be mixing it as they were going, so that there was a naturalistic vibe inside of these like incredibly, a very strong period piece aesthetic. And Olivia had a real clear vision to create that. And so I had in that case a little leeway, and I'm there to like poke fun at and have a friendship with Harry's character. And so there was actually a little freedom to I wasn't there to like crack jokes, but to bring a little bit of like buoyancy and levity. And oftentimes I would get brought in to do that kind of element to those projects.
Go, to the
All the way back, all the way back.
Guess the title of this violence and gore warning. A man gets angry and tacks a chair with a machete. I wonder if this is Kroll Show? No. Because I did this sketch called Ponytails, and it was me and Richard Kind and Seth Morris, and it was like an MTV True Life about just men who had ponytails. And I played this guy who was a karate guy with a ponytail, and his best friend was a iguana named Bruce Lizard. I am single. But it's not that, and he had a machete. But it's not that. A man gets angry and attacks a chair with a machete.
Prestige filmmaker?
Oh, okay, yes. Is this Terrence Malick, Knight of Cups? I got zero information when I came, and they were like, hey, would you want to come and do a Terrence Malick movie 2 days from now? I was like, yes, of course. They're like, come dressed for a party. And I was like, a party? And they were like, the most they would give me was like a kind of a cool LA party. And I was like, okay, great. And I showed up, I had like a sneaker and like a loafer, or 2 different sneakers. And I showed the wardrobe designer, I was like, which do you want me to wear? And she's like, I like either of them. She's like, but I'm warning you, if you want to show it to Terrence, he's probably gonna tell you to wear both. And he was like, and I showed him, he's like, oh, I like them both. So I think I'm wearing 2 different shoes. And I remember Joel Kinnaman was also in it, and he had been given this like incredibly long monologue to memorize. And he was talking to all the actors about what he wanted, and he was sort of like, you're all eddies in the water. You're flowing. So Chibo's shooting it, shoots like Cuarón's movies and shoots Inarritu's. I mean, he's like one of the greatest cinematographers alive. And they're just like steady cams kind of moving around. And Malick is always asking for movement so that you're kind of like, it just felt constantly like water flowing. And he came up to me and he said, you are a torpedo. You are here to disrupt. And so I was like, okay. And so all day long, I was just there to kind of be a bit of a rascal. And the movie is centered on Christian Bale, who's at this Hollywood party. And I had a bit with him where he's just like, can you go start talking to Christian? And I was like, okay. And so I'm like, hey, whose party is this? And Christian was like, I don't know, whose party is it? Like, and I was like, oh, Christian, the actor and the character, also does not know exactly where he is or what is happening here. And he's trying to glean some information from me about this. And I'm like, bro, I got a call 4 hours ago to be here. I don't have any idea what's going on here. But I then my job was to with him, and there's a moment in there was a sculptor making ice sculptures using a chainsaw, and it was a guy making art out of blocks of ice. And I had these big shards of ice, and I at some point was seemingly inspired to take the ice and drop it down the back of Christian Bale, who took it. He did not, but I was like, this could go one of 2 ways. Anyway, that's my memory of doing Knight of Cups with Terrence Malick. Can you please tease any Parents Guide warnings from the upcoming Smurfs movie? Feel free to say them in Smurf. I have no Smurfing idea if there's anything Smurfable in Smurfs, but I will say I find not only Smurfette very Smurfable, but I find Papa Smurf pretty Smurfable as well, if you've got a Smurf fetish.
Absolutely.
So So I have a new show coming out on FX called Adults, about 20-somethings living in New York that I produced and direct some of. I have a feeling there are going to be some Parents Guide issues that will come up with the new series. There are some very adult situations in Adults that I think the Parents Guide is gonna enjoy having a look at.
You guys are completely out of control.
Oh my God!
Should there be a Parents Guide warning about the excessive use of seafood in this sketch? I guess this is in reference to Too Much Tuna, me and John Mulaney's Oh Hello characters.
You have 3 meals of tuna fish per day.
You gotta eat breakfast, lunch, dinner, don't you?
Oh, there's definitely gotta be a Parents Guide warning about this, because the boys pull no punches. You get pranked with too much tuna because you're a schmuck.
That's too much tuna, and we just pranked you, but good.
Less about the tuna and more probably the language that the guys use in reference to whoever they're pranking. Because they're like, you idiot.
You're dumb as a dog.
More the warning would be like, just don't hang out with these guys. These are bad guys.
Great. It's a cake made out of tuna that says get bent.
Translation, get stuffed.
Then why didn't you just write get stuffed on it?
Because we couldn't fit it on the cake.
Tell me about first discovering the Gil and George Oh Hello characters with John Mulaney.
Me and Mulaney were living in New York in the early 2000s, and these guys are just all over. They're crawling around New York, and now literally crawling because they're geriatric and have absolutely feeble bones. But these guys are just like typical older New York guys, Upper West Side, NPR, tote bags before the hipsters started using them. Obsessed with Alan Alda, turtleneck sweaters.
That's why Alan Alda is a sex symbol.
Yeah.
So we just became obsessed with them. They're all over New York, and we started talking like them. And then we decided to bring it to a little theater where we would host a weekly show at this little alt black box theater in New York, where all of our friends were doing shows every night. And we started hosting a weekly show as these guys. And we would do an intro where we would drink too much tuna or a lot of seafood drinks. A shrimp scampi, a scampi-tini. Don't skimp on the scampi. We drank sausages one night, dog food. It was a bad scene. It was very experimental. Anyway, it started there, and then we kept doing them and did them on Kroll Show and built a weird fan base of people who weren't just like, New Yorkers, and then decided to do this Broadway show based on those characters. And it's like, of course, those guys would write a play of their own, and so it was a natural fit that we eventually brought to Broadway.
Can you imagine a Broadway show exceeding your expectations by having a set?
Yeah. Would Gil Faizon be on the Mount Rushmore of Nick Kroll characters and voices? Who would be the 4? Gil Faizon, chiseled in rock, just like, yeah. That poor sculptor to have to figure out how to like turn this rubbery mug into a massive piece of stone sculpture. Yeah, Gil would be up there. Bobby Bottle Service from Kroll Show would be up there.
Not a problem for me, bro. Masculinity.
I think I would have a Mount Rushmore for, and this is how it works, is you get a Mount Rushmore for all the different genres of things you do, and that, I think that would make, and I think it's what America needs right now. I think that's what would make America great again, is me defacing national monuments with my niche characters. I would put like original characters that I used to do. Fabrice, Chupacabra would be up there in some way. The Rich Dicks, Caesar, these are all Kroll Show characters.
Well, ribbit! Blah, 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 blah! It's Prince Charming!
And then there's the film animation stuff that I've been able to do, like Gunter from Sing, or Professor Poopy Pants, Uncle Fester from the Addams Family, the Douche.
Both douches, right?
Two different douches.
I mean, I know it's a silly thing to do, but it pays the bills.
Well, we could have a Mount Rushmore for just the characters that I played named the Douche, which you could add any of the characters that didn't make it who were just kind of douchey characters that I would, there's a number of those to choose from.
Welcome to Douche Nation.
How close to Nick Kroll is Nick Birch?
Pretty close in a lot of ways. I was the youngest in my family. I hit puberty very late. I was, in my own mind, pretty charming. simultaneously, I think, pretty insecure and constantly comparing myself to my friends and others because I was really small. There's a number of, I guess, storylines in the show that do reflect elements of my personal experience for sure.
There's a growth spurt storyline in this
Yes.
latest season. Is that something that was crucial to your development at that time?
Yeah, so the final season of the show, season 8, the kids are now in high school. I entered high school at probably like 4'11", and some point over the next few years had a massive growth spurt. So all of a sudden I went from much smaller than my friend Andrew Goldberg, who Andrew in the show is based on, and then just like spurted past him. And all of a sudden was like, oh, here I am now. I'm like basically this, the height of everybody else. And it was a major shift for me, both in relation to just all of a sudden feeling taller and more like everyone, but also the hormonal and emotional changes that I had skirted in middle school because I hadn't hit puberty yet, then hit hard the first couple years of high school.
It finally happened. I grew.
Sharing these stories through Big Mouth, has it been liberating, or are there any that you wish you hadn't put on the show?
No, there's nothing I regret putting on the show. I think it was liberating and therapeutic to sort of try to understand exactly what was happening to me and how that's affected me as an adult. And then, like, that's what people don't talk about is when they use art as therapy, is by revisiting them, you do kind of can like re-trigger them. So there are moments where it's like, me talking about this foundational part of my life doesn't necessarily always put it to bed. In fact, sometimes it reignites whatever I was going through in a weird way.
Have you reached in clarity in those moments of like reigniting the past?
Yeah, I'm still processing it through my various therapists.
Let's save this for therapy.
What didn't make it into Big Mouth? Was a joke or scene ever rejected or censored? Very few things have been censored. Again, thank you to Netflix for letting us make an absolutely filthy show. But we had Rick, the old hormone monster that I played.
He talked about having a thick little
and he then pulled a thermometer out of the mouth of his penis and a little bit of blood squirted out. And we watched that, and Netflix came up to us afterwards. They're like, hey, we wonder if maybe don't worry, we're gonna cut that. It was like fair enough. And there have been a few things over the years that we were like, that Netflix was like, we would like you to change that. Sometimes we fought it, but most of the time it was a general consensus of like, yeah, this is not worth whatever we're trying to go for here.
Full animation and everything on the thermometer pull, does that exist somewhere?
I mean, it exists in a personal folder I have on my computer called Stuff. We'll release it. I don't give a shit anymore. Show's over. We'll put it out. Internet, do your thing.
Oh, sure, the internet. The safest place for children who feel different.
Okay.
Can you preview something IMDb will have to add to the Parents Guide for Big Mouth Season 8? Sure, yes. In the final episode, we may allude to an encounter with Matthew and Jay that is being presided over by Lola. I don't know how else to explain it without ruining it, but I think you'll get some calls about that one. People still call, hi, can I please speak to IMDb? Yes. I've got a call-in complaint that I'd like to give.
disgusting sex monster!
Do you remember these dirty firsts? First inappropriate joke that you learned. The first inappropriate joke that I learned was the first joke that I remember telling growing up. I was probably about 5. Have you ever smelled mothballs?
Yes.
How did you get the little sucker's legs open? For some reason, that's the joke I was telling when I was 5 years old.
That's a man joke, I'm kidding.
Do you know where you learned it?
I was the youngest of 4, I had an older brother. I was swearing regularly as like a small child. I was swearing like, I now have friends that were my sister's older friends than me who were like, I was learning curse words from you when you were 4. That's what happens when you're the youngest.
God, I love this kid.
First time you got in trouble for swearing or telling a vulgar joke? I guess probably in school, but again at home, we had a lot of leeway by the time I was swearing, my parents had just sort of given up. There were bigger fish to fry at that point.
I get such a kick out of this kid.
A stand-up joke that you wish you hadn't told. I mean, there's some jokes that like don't necessarily age that well, or characters that I played that I wouldn't play today. I would say I was always trying to play them hopefully to the height of whatever they were doing. But yeah, there's some stuff that like I mentioned Fabrice or Chupacabra that I likely wouldn't do anymore, but at the time, they seem funny to me. I don't care! The best note you got from Netflix on Big Mouth. I mean, honestly, the note early on from them when we started making the show and into season 2 and beyond was like, go for it. That was really their early note, was like, they were differentiating themselves from other places. This was a chance where you didn't have to deal with advertisers. There really was the opportunity to go for it and take massive risks. And they were really like, your show fits into what we're trying to do in a place where it's like, you're gonna go for it, you're gonna experiment, you're gonna push the envelope. That's what we're here to do, and we're gonna let you do that. And they really stood by that note and let us go for it over and over. One of the early reviews was like, Big Mouth gives 0 and that became a real ethos for us as we continue to make the show, is like, we give 0 we're gonna go for it. And I believe even by season 8, when you watch season 8, it's like, wow, they still give 0 and we stood by that, hopefully, throughout the 80 episodes, 81 episodes of the show that we made.
Maybe that should be what crolling is giving 0.
Giving 0
yeah.
And getting laid 0 times is what crolling is.
You're right. You're right.
Thanks for watching The Parents Guide. Please like and subscribe for more. I don't know why I have to promote and ask you to like and subscribe to some other channel, but that's the media age that we live in. And please, this is why I'm willing to say that, so that I can now say, please watch the last season of Big Mouth, May 23rd on Netflix, and you can watch the first season of Adult, premiering on FX May 28th and dropping on Hulu on May 29th.